Very good afternoon to all. It's indeed a great pleasure to start the Meet the Expert series and let us discuss biodiversity session. With the permission of Honorable Director Sir, we are able to start this program from today onwards, and it will be continuing for at least 50 lectures like that. We have a plan. And we are fortunate that our Honorable Director Sir, Dr. Kailash Chandra Sir, has agreed to be the first expert and guide us towards this journey. So it's my great pleasure to introduce him to the participants. Dr. Kailash Chandra Sir is leading on ZSI, a 100 plus years organization since 2015 as a director. Before this, he has completed his PhD from Kurukshetra University, Haryana in the year 1986. After that, he has worked in various organizations like Kurukshetra University, IARI, New Delhi, Malaria Research Center, ICMR, ZSI Calcutta, ZSI Solan, ANRC, Port Blair, CZRC Jodhpur, in all regional centers of ZSI. After that, he has come to the Zoological Survey of India, headquarters as Director Zoological Survey of India. Before that, he has also led 2 centers as officer in charge in Andaman Nicobar Regional Center and Central Zone Regional Center, Jabalpur. To the best of his credit, he is having 400 plus research paper, 320 plus book chapters, 64 books, and he has also a part of 22 in-house and 12 research externally funded projects. Besides that, 10 students completed their PhD under Sir, and to his taxonomic introductions, I can say he has described 3 new genus and 86 new species to science. So his contribution to the science of taxonomy, to the science of zoology is immense. Sir, I welcome you to this Meet the Expert, let us discuss biodiversity forum. And I thank you for the first opportunity you have given to us and agreed for this forum to present yourself, sir. It's an honor to have you with us. So now I'll request Dr. Kailash Chandra sir to start this session and start his presentation. Over to sir.
Dr. Anil Mohapatra, I welcome all dignitaries who are joining this webinar on the topic Meet the Experts. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Anil Mohapatra for taking to start discussion on the biodiversity, which is very, very pertinent subject on today's scenario when for a very difficult time. Already this corona pandemic has taken place for months and everyone is under panic. So this is a very, very relevant topic for discussion. From today onwards, I think it will be presented by our various scientists of Zoological Survey of India. After seeing the list of the participants, I could see that many of our scientists from ZSI, different regional centers, as well as headquarters are joining. And there are some senior or professor and assistant professor level from different universities. I welcome you all for this webinar. Although it's very, very difficult to discuss the entire biodiversity within 1 hour time or maybe 45 minutes, but I will try to sum up the things. Whatever ZSI has been doing it for more than 100 years. And again, I would like to clarify here, the presentation which is being shared with you does not belong to me. It is for the whole organization, Zoological Survey of India, and the information which has been supplemented by other universities, colleges and institutions, and then only we could come to this level that whatever the fauna and flora are known from our country, we are able to present to the Government of India. With this, I would like to share my presentation. Dr. Anil.
Sir, present now.
Is it safe?
Not yet, sir.
Present? Not it.
Not yet, sir.
So is it
Yes,
visible now, Dr.
yes,
Anil?
yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. Thank you. So, as it has been requested by Dr. Anil Mahapatra to make a presentation on fauna of India and overview. Many of you may be aware about Geological Survey of India. The JDSI was established on 1st July 1916, and then the major objective was to promote survey, exploration and research on exceptionally rich fauna diversity of the country. That is our history as well as the main motto of the organization. Then vision statement is towards conservation and sustaining biodiversity, fauna diversity for the future, and the mission is to contribute towards the monitoring and conservation of the fauna by conducting status survey of wildlife protected species, undertaking taxonomic studies, and documenting the country's vast diversity of the fauna. So in that way, our JDSI is serving the nation through faunal inventarization since 1916, and the major motto is towards this extension to existence. And for last more than 104 years, entire data of the country has been collected, starting from the deep sea to the Himalayan region, and then we are having the digitization of the entire data, DNA barcoding, etc. Why we should study the biodiversity? That is the major actually question to all of us, and many times it is told that if you lose any one of the animal or any one plant, how it is going to affect us. So biodiversity, which we always call it, it's a composition of the entire our fauna, flora and microorganisms and their interrelationship, which provides us the basic goods. Like in earlier days, people used to say, agar hamare paas roti, kapda, makan hai, then that is more than enough for us. So that was the need for a human being as a basic necessity of the life. But recently, because of the luxury and many more things, this is going expanded. And then that we also call it food, shelter and clothing. These entire our basic goods we are getting from the biodiversity, and this has been actually serving for the survival of the humankind with the coexistence with the nature, and then only we are getting this economical as well as the social development, health, wealth and the food security from the biodiversity. So these are the major components for the survival of not only the human being but entire our species as well as the ecosystems and the subspecies genetic diversity. But in last several decades, we can say that because of the indiscriminate use of the natural resources and the resultant loss of the biodiversity that threatens the very survival of the planet itself. There have been many more factors because of the anthropogenic activities. And then during 1992, the Convention of Biological Diversity was held in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, and then after December 1993, this came into force, and that includes three major principles. First, the conservation of the biodiversity. Second, sustainable use of the component of the biodiversity, and then the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of the use of the genetic resources. Many of you might be knowing there is one authority, that is National Biodiversity Authority, which is having the Biodiversity Act 2002 and Biodiversity Rule 2004. On that Biodiversity Act, the stake of the biodiversity for the utilization of the natural resource, they have to share 0.2% of those costs to the national biodiversity for the promotion and conservation of the biodiversity in our India. Going back to the time of the Carl Linnaeus, to whom we call as a father of taxonomy, who was born in 1707 and then survived up to 1778. He wrote Systema Naturae in 1758 and 59, and then onwards the taxonomy of the plants and animals started. You will be astonished to know it that Linnaeus, to whom we call as a father of taxonomy, described more than 7,700 plants and 4,400 species of animals across the world, even from India. Several species are under his credit. As far as the fauna of India is concerned, before independence 1947, the entire volumes of the fauna of India were known as the fauna of British India. 91 volumes of the fauna of British India were published before 1947, and after that, when genocide took over from 1916 onwards, and then 1947 onwards, the name of the fauna of British India was changed to fauna of India, and 61 volumes have already been published by genocide after independence. And these 152 volumes of the fauna of India and fauna of British India covers only 25% of the fauna diversity of the country. As you know very well, there are 17 mega diversity countries across the world, and India is one among them. And that is only in the 2.4% of the global land area. We have more than 6% of the biodiversity in our country, and at present, which is updated the information by December 2019, 49,600 species of 102,161 species of animals have been documented. Not only the one of the mega diversity country and having 4 biodiversity hotspots in our country, India is also ranking 8th in the world. And this is the details which I am sharing in the slide, that there are 2 animal kingdom. One is Protista, under whom this protozoa are covered, and remaining one are covered under the Animalia. So at present, 1,02,161 species have been reported from our country, of which 91,420 are only the invertebrates. So this, again, the whatever arthropoda, that is the major our kingdom is there. That is actually more than 75,000 species have been reported from our country. As far as the vertebrates are concerned, 6,736 species under this vertebrates have been reported from our country. Fishes, 3,396 species, of which 482 are endemic. Then amphibia, 417 species, 287 species are endemic. Then reptilia, 614, birds, 1343, and mammals, 429. Out of these, more than 1 lakh species, 28,000 species are endemic to our country, to whom we call them as endemic species. There are many other countries who are having more biodiversity, flora and fauna in their countries, like Brazil, Colombia, Indonesia, China, Mexico, Peru, Australia, and after that only the name of the India is there. So it's ranking 8th, and that is only because of the number of more species in case of the vertebrates and the number of the vascular plant species. So coming to this number of species in different landscapes, now I'm discussing about the Indian land and seascape, what is the diversity in our country, and that is possible only because of our national zoological collections, which have been collected throughout our country for last more than 100 years, and that we are having the voucher specimens of those collections, and many of them have been identified by the scientists further. And this is also serving for our collation of the information of the entire fauna of the country that we are sharing with the international and national institutions, or the colleges, universities and schools, zoological parks, NGOs, as well as out of this National Zoological Collection, which is present with the Zoological Survey of India, comprising about 5.6 million specimens. Out of 5.6 million specimens, 3.8 million specimens are identified and 1.8 million specimens are still unidentified. And that is challenge for us. And that major reason for unidentified collection is because of the lack of experts on all group of animals. Besides the National Zoological Collections, which is having the reference collections, JDSI is also holding the type specimens of all the species which have been described from the India by Zoological Survey of India. Around 17,000 specimens of types are available with Zoological Survey of India headquarters in all the regional centers. As I mentioned, this is actually this database on the landscape as well as diversity of the fauna, which we compiled the information. Dr. C. Raghunathan, who is with us in JDSI, he has been working for last 2 decades on the seascape, and he has compiled 20,444 species of marine fauna from the country. And as far as the terrestrial fauna, that we call it landscape fauna, and that is around 81,405 species reported from countries. Coming to the invertebrates, and within the invertebrates, if we talk about the insect diversity in India, out of 102,000 species, 65,419 species of insects that has been upgraded to the subphylum, and that is Hexapoda. And under this insect diversity of India, we are having the list from all the orders of insects as well as the classes like Proteura, Diplura and the Collembola, which have been recorded from the country, and the entire database is available with us. And this also around 6.15% of the whole diversity of the world that is recorded from our country. And there are 8 orders which are the major orders, but the number is more, and they comprise around 94% of the insect fauna of the country. They are Lepidoptera, that we call as moths and butterflies. Coleoptera means beetles. Then Orthoptera, there are grasshopper, crickets. Then Diptera, the true flies. Hemiptera, the true bugs. Then Odonata, they are the damsel flies and dragonflies. Hymenoptera, that includes bees, wasps, like then Thysoptera, thrips. And these are the major order of insects, and they comprise around 94% of the insect diversity. And remaining 19 orders, they comprise 6% of the diversity. And this number you can see from here that only the Coleoptera is the major order, having 22,299 species from India. Then Lepidoptera is having 12,500 species. Then Diptera this is Hymenoptera. This is 10,605 species. Then Diptera 7,220 species. Then Hymenoptera 6,479 species. Similarly, Orthoptera 1,033 species. And then Trichoptera, caddis flies, 1,227 species. And then Neuroptera, they are having 3,684 species. Similarly, for landscape and marine diversity, fauna diversity, I have discussed now. Coming to the soil fauna, this is the exclusive information which had been brought out by Zoological Survey of India, and out of again more than 1 lakh species which had been compiled by JDSI, 21,869 species have been reported from our country. They are all below ground diversity. They are mostly found in soil, and soil maybe the tunnels and other things that comprises microfauna. There are the microorganisms, then mesofauna, then macrofauna, and the megafauna that includes mammals and other group of animals. So this is a very, very exclusive information. Many of the participants may not be aware that ZSI also published information of the soil fauna of our country. The species which are of the medical and veterinary importance are this a major group of our phylum, that is Arthropoda, and there are also more than 2,000 species of different group of insects like our crustacea, then cockroaches, bugs, then beetles, then flies, then other groups like our scorpions, then spiders are also covered here. They are all included under Arthropoda. Similarly, for meiofauna, this is a one group which are very microscopic fauna. They are mostly present in the seashore area, mud area, and there already 20 groups have been recorded from India, and 2,285 species have been known. And there is Dr. G.C. Rao, who has been working on this meiofauna for last more than 40 years. He is going to compile the information of not only the meiofauna of India, but meiofauna of the whole world. And he has already submitted a document for the meiofauna along with the entire illustration of the species, their figures, and that also is going to be published by Zoological Survey. This is very, very important slide with regard to the invasive alien species. I can just mention it's not about the plants, but invasive alien species of the animals. This also has been compiled by the scientists of Zoological Survey of India, led by Dr. C. Raghunathan. And here you will see from the seascape there are 99 species, and from the marine area 58 species are there, and total 157 species of the IS, that is called invasive alien species, have been compiled, and it's published also in one of the book published by Ministry of Environment and Forest, Climate Change. Many of you may be aware that ZSI is present in whole India, and its headquartered in Kolkata, and there are 16 regional centers throughout India. They are not only working on all the states and union territory, but they are also covering the different ecosystems. They are actually, some of the regional centers are dedicated to the different ecosystems, like our Gopalpur Ganjam Center, Estuarine Biological Research Center, is dedicated for the study of the fauna of the estuaries. So like that, many stations or centers have been dedicated on different ecosystems. And presently, the database on the 25 states fauna series have already been published. Those who are interested to, I think, access these documents, all of them are available in ZSI website in the name of the Fauna of India and IC.in, and anyone can access the information of the fauna of all these 25 states. The Himachal Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, they are already under the finalization. The Chandigarh, Assam, already I think collection is over, and then that identification will be carried out. And the programs on the Jharkhand, Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, Telangana, Daman and Diu, Puducherry, Dadra, Nagar Haveli are already going on. Probably by next 1 decade, we'll be able to publish the fauna of states of all states and union territories of the country, that is covering 37 UT states. This is the number which I want to share with you, the number of species which have been recorded from all the 25 states which have been published by ZSI, and you will be happy to know that here, if you see the graph, the number of species are the maximum from Andaman Nicobar Islands, that is 11,009 species of animals reported, that includes the terrestrial as well as the marine species, and this is only present in 0.25% of the area if we will compare with the whole country geographical area. And that is followed by the West Bengal, which is having around 7,774 species of animals, and later on it has been compiled, and that has also gone to the 11,000 species animals of India. So these state data, after even the publication of the state fauna, is still updated, and that also available with the scientists of ZSI. This is one of the group of insects that is a Proteroda under this our class Hexapoda, subphylum Hexapoda. And if you could see the map of India, here only one species of Proteroda known from the West Bengal and 20 species of the Proteroda known from the Kerala. So this is a group which is not yet explored from all over the country, and like that for all the group of insects and other group of invertebrates, we are having the information and we have mapped in our whole country, and from all the states whatever the diversity is known, that has been recorded. This is the slide about this Epimeropterans. They are called as mayflies, and you could see the number of species from respective states. And like that here in Himachal Pradesh, the number is 29, and from the Tamil Nadu, 44 species, that is the maximum one recorded of the mayflies from the India. So this is the number, but still in many of the states we do not even have the record of the single species of the mayflies, although they are the aquatic insects and almost widely distributed throughout India. They are actually, we want to have the support from the colleges and university. If they can supplement the information, they can collect. Our colored maps of the state, they are having a few number of the species, and wherever there is no species reported, they are just blank. So in many of the states, still the information is lacking, and this data, this way we are maintaining the database in Zoological Survey of India for all the states and ecosystems. I think this is the slide, very, very important. It's still not yet published, and ZSI is going to have the information on all the 10 biogeographic zones of the country, and 4 or 5 have already been published, like our Trans-Himalaya has already been published. That includes 3,324 species, then 6,760 species from the semi-arid, from the Himalaya 28,000 plus species, then from northeastern region 17,035 species, Andaman Nicobar Island 11,009 species, even from the coast that is 12,070 species. So like that now entire informations are going to be published, and whoever is interested, they can just write to ZSI for them. Not only for the whole fauna of the country, but group-wise, along with the endemic species, particularly for the vertebrates, fishes, amphibian, reptiles, birds, and mammals also, we are having the information. This slide is about the reptiles, and one can assess what are the biodiversity hotspots where we have the maximum diversity of the reptiles in India. Here you will see the maximum number of reptiles have been reported from the Western Ghat, that is 227 species, of which 128 species are endemic, and that is followed by the Himalayan region, then not Himalayan, that is from the Gangetic Plains, and then Deccan Peninsula. Deccan Peninsula is the second most, which is having the reptilian diversity. Similarly, for the amphibia, you can see there what are the species which are here also. Amphibia and reptilia are represented, I think, maximum in the Western Ghat. So this is the herpetofauna, and then fishes, mammals, and birds are more represented, highest number in the eastern, northeast India. So this has been supplemented by Dr. Kaushik Devti. He has been working on the herpetofauna. Not only states and union territories, then biogeographic zones, but there are different ecosystems in India, like mountain ecosystem, desert ecosystem, then there are different natural ecosystems, including this wetland, coastal and marine, then coral reef ecosystem, mangrove ecosystem, seagrass, then grassland ecosystem, island ecosystem in Andaman Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, agriculture ecosystem. All these ecosystems also we have been working for last several decades. Now we have started compiling the information. Many of these informations are already available in the book, like marine and coastal diversity of India, comprising 20,444 species already published by JRSI. Then freshwater fauna, 9,456 species, that's also available in book. Then Himalayas, 30,377 species. From estuarine, from Gopalpur, they have contributed 3,392 species. Then mangroves, 4,822 species. Then islands, particularly from Andaman Nicobar Islands, 11,000. The soil fauna, I've already discussed, around 22,000. That is fauna and flora together. Then seagrass, very, very important for conservation in the sea area. And many of the species, marine species, are dependent on the seagrass. So the diversity also has been published. This is the detailed information about freshwater ecosystem and marine, different group of animals which are present in freshwater and marine are elaborated in, and details you can access in the book. If you write in any of the website on a diversity of the freshwater ecosystem, you're getting entire book soft copy. After having discussion of the diversity, fauna diversity of this ecosystem, then these are some of the major threats for the biodiversity, that is habitat destructions, deforestation, overexploitation of the natural resources in all the ecosystems, then followed by the poaching and illegal wildlife trade, invasive species I have already discussed, then because of the traffic, roadkill, rail track, then plastic pollution, then microplastics. These are some of the threats for the flora and fauna and different ecosystems. To conserve and then protect these species, Government of India has already actually notified several protected areas in the country, and that we call as a protected area network. At present, there are 870 protected areas in the country notified under Wildlife Protection Act, comprising of 104 national park, 551 wildlife sanctuaries, then 127 community reserves, 58 conservations. These are the four categories which are included under the protected areas, and there are many more other protected areas, but they are not notified under Wildlife Protection Act, although they are covered under many other protection rules. There are also bird sanctuaries which are also included in wildlife sanctuaries. There are 72, and JRSI has recently published the information of the bird sanctuaries, what are the species which are, and up to some extent their population also which has been recorded from the country. There are 50 tiger reserves for the conservation of the umbrella species, 32 elephant reserves, around 28,000 to 30,000 individuals are present in our country. Similarly, for tiger reserve, 2956 individuals are there for the tiger in our country as per the present census of the 2018. Then there are 36 Ramsar sites, 18 biosphere reserves. These are all for the in situ conservation. One for ex situ conservations, government is also having zoos. There are 511 zoos in our country for the ex situ conservations maintained by the various state governments as well as central government. As far as the protection of species concerns, I was talking about the protected areas, network protected areas. Now coming to the protected species, how they are protected in our country, whatever the threatened species are there. The first category is at the international level, that is called as the red list of IUCN, and that is for the conservation status of the species which is going to become extinct. There are several categories which I will just mention here. And this is the international status. In our country, if at all any species is there, and that is widely distributed, for that status survey for international level has to be taken up. Then only they are included under the IUCN. Then CITES provides the restriction in trade for the some species among the different countries. So this is for the trade for the endangered species between different species, different countries. Then within India, we have the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, and the government of India is providing the protection, and there is actually prosecution for those people, and there are different schedules, starting from Schedule 1 to Schedule 6. Out of Schedule 6, Schedule 1 to Schedule 5 are included under Wildlife Protection Act, and Schedule 6 belong to the species of the plants. So there are different categories under IUCN, and there are 3 categories that we call as vulnerable, then endangered, and then critically endangered. They are all covered under one of the category, that is the threatened one. And that is why in many times it has been confused that endangered species are the critically endangered and endangered are the vulnerable. But there are the 3 categories together. They have been combined together and kept in threatened species. And these 3 categories, as per the IUCNs, are totally different one. So you could see here that depends on the population of those species. They have been included under the IUCN red list categories, starting from the not evaluated species. Then this has not yet been evaluated. They are kept under not evaluated. Then data deficient, do not have adequate information. Then they are kept in data deficient. Lower risk, if the species population is quite enough, and they are not under the category lower risk on the basis of the population. Then the vulnerable, when the population start declining and moving towards endangered, then after endangered it becomes critically endangered. In the critically endangered species, if they are extinct in the nature, extinct in the means wild, or there is not a single doubt that that particular species is not at all available, not a single live specimen even available in the zoo or any of the category, then that is called as extinct in the wild, completely extinct that particular species. So these are the categories of the IUCN, and next is the species which are included under the CITES. This is for the Convention of International Trade of the Endangered Species, a different group of the mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibia, fishes, echinoderms, and the corals and the butterflies. These are the 8 groups. They are included under the CITES, appendices 1, 2, and 3. These species are being finalized during this COP meetings of the Convention of the Biodiversity, and then only they have been, after having the discussion at global level. At present, there are 965 species of the fauna which are in. It may be of lot of interest to the students. These may just go through the detail just see it. Similarly, for the wildlife protected species, we always come to know that such and such species is endangered, vulnerable, or critically endangered. And critically endangered is at the top, and when not a single specimen is available in nature, that becomes the extinct species. That may be at local level or the global level. So this is the group. There are 14 group of animals, starting from mammalia, birds, then reptiles, amphibia, fishes, then echinodermata, that is actually the holotherians, mollusks, these are the shells, then crustacea, that include coconut crab from Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and there are 2 species of horseshoe crab on which our Dr. Vasudev Tripathi is working for the conservation. Then butterflies, very common our species of the fauna, and out of 1640 species, around 444 species have been included under Wildlife Protection Act. Then there are beetles pertaining to the family Chrysomelidae as well as the Carabidae. They have been included under wildlife protection. And then one species of the dragonfly, that is Odonata theraptera. This is a parasite, because a parasite in the mammal. If the mammal is already in the critical endangered species, if that species is lost, probably this of the parasite also will be lost. Then coelacanths includes all the coral species and the porifera, which is having this our sponges. There are actually calcareous sponges. There also the population is also declining, and that's why these are included under Wildlife Protection Act. And so far around 2,577 species have been included under Wildlife Protection Act. And out of these, around 800 plus species have been included under our marine fauna. You must have heard many names about our endangered species, but there are 2-3 more categories commonly called as flagship species, umbrella species, as well as the keystone species. So I would like to just inform here how they are and why they are called as a flagship species. The species liked by everyone is known as flagship species, like black butterflies. And then umbrella species, the name of conservation of umbrella species. Other species present in their habitats, ecosystems are also conserved. We do have several umbrella species project in our country, and because of this, our conservation of this umbrella species, many more species in that particular ecosystem, habitat, and landscape. Similarly, for the keystone species, if any particular species is removed from the list, other species dependent on the particular species are also vanished from the ecosystems. They are like coral reefs and the ficus that we commonly call as banyan tree, and moved from the ecosystems that has the impact on the entire our landscapes. So we do have many umbrella species project in our country, funded by the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change, particularly for critically endangered as well as the endangered species, the tiger, elephant, snow leopard, Asiatic lion, Indian rhino, and the dolphin now has started recently. And there are 50 tiger reserves and 32 reserves for the conservation of this particular umbrella species and recovery of this species. JTSI has also undertaken the status survey of those species which are included under IUCN as well as Wildlife Protection Act. 20 species of mammals have already been surveyed by JTSI, 10 species of the birds, 25 species of the reptiles, 4 species of the amphibians, 3 species of arthropods. That includes the coconut crab and 2 species of the arsu crabs, then 45 species of echinoderms and the mollusk like our trochus shells. And this is the list. These documents are also available in JTSI. And not only the species, but our entire habitat. We can say that landscape, and particularly this marine area, if we discuss here, the Andaman Nicobar Islands, many areas, the monitoring plots have been established for the biodiversity plots, for to monitor it continuously on periodic different time period. Then in Lakshadweep also, these are the 2 areas for the monitoring of the biodiversity in the marine area has been taken up. Then Himalayan in the terrestrial region, then Sundarban, West Bengal for the Manurugu ecosystem, the Gulf of Kutch, then Sindhudur and Maharashtra. These are the 2 another marine area where the biodiversity is. JTSI is also one of the designated national repositories for the deposition of the collections, whether it's a reference collection or maybe type collections, and the for fauna exclusive JTSI has been designated. Whoever is intended to deposit it, if they are working on any group of animals, we welcome them and they will receive all those collections, and that will be accessible on the few workers who are interested, maybe national level as well as the international level. We are heading towards this our digital archival of the publication of JTSI. Many of you may be also having access to the entire publication of JTSI. Around 2.5 lakh pages of JTSI publication comprising 1,550 books and 10,000 scientific papers are available in our website, that is Fauna of India, nic.in. Anyone can access even without registration. For our use in JTSI library, more than 10 lakh pages of the different literatures, journals, books are being digitized. They are also available. And very soon we are going to put entire data of the type specimens of 17,000 specimens that will be available like this. and the photograph, very detailed photograph will be available in our website, and their code, detailed information about their species, from where they have been collected, who collected, when it was identified by the experts. All those informations like this I am sharing with you. These are the 2-3 tables. There are thousands of tables, and the photographs will be shared with you for future reference and identification. This is about the birds, then bats, and then we are also going to make one species page for our species. I think around 20,000 species have been completed, and once the entire database is validated, then we can put it in our website for access to any of the section of the country or maybe from outside. And then not only the species page, but also geospatial database for all those species from where they have been collected, reported, then published. That information also will be available for all researchers. This is the website of ZSI.gov.in for the detailed information of ZSI. And not only that, there are also 81 checklist of different group of animals comprising around 17,000 plus species of reported from India available. And so far, for last before this decade, by 2010, we have been working mostly on the classical taxonomy as well as the morphological taxonomy. But 2012 onwards, ZSI has developed one molecular laboratory in headquarters and 4 laboratories in regional centers, and that we are expanding in other regional centers also. Our Estuarine Biological Research Center also, they have started working in the molecular studies for DNA barcoding. So this has also become essential for, along with the morphological characters, whenever we have actually doubt about the identification of the species, when the cryptic or sibling species, at least that could be sorted out through this mitochondrial DNA COI1 gene, and that is why much of the information, whenever the new species is published, that is also along with the DNA barcode of that particular species, then that is also published in one of the best journals. That is what we are encouraging to all our scientists. So these are the centers, and headquarters we are having the DNA barcoding center, and presently more than 6,500 specimens have already been barcoded, and they are also available in NCBI bold data of the global level, and that is authentic data, and anyone can have access. We are giving the priority to the species which are described new, or the species which are included under Wildlife Protection Act, IUCN, then CITES, endemic species, and the lesser known animals are also given the priority for DNA barcoding. If we will compare the number with any of the other institutes in India, even in South Asia, the number of ZS, the maximum one, which is around 28% of the number of the barcodes which have been uploaded in NCBI database, and anyone can access this. Much of the information about these spiders already published. Then this is about the moths, that is also published. This is the maximum data. This is about the thrips. Around 370 DNA barcodes pertaining to 89 species of the thrips. This is the maximum database of the India. None of the other institutions are having the database on the thrips. ZSI has carried out, and they have also published information in different group of our journals, and SCI journals mainly, Scientific Report and PLAS One. And along with that, many of the endangered and critically endangered species DNA barcode, as well as their mitochondrial genome also published. Around 30 species have already been covered. Now we are further taking this study of the next generation. Many of the participants are aware. So far, if you take up one specimen, you can carry out their DNA barcode. There are also possibilities. You are having the group of animals, and you put them together. It means 100 or 100 plus specimens of different group of insects are there. if we put them at one place and extract, if you want to have the extraction of DNA, that also you could carry out through next generation sequencing. That is also going on in JDSI. So one can assess the biodiversity of that particular place instead of going one to one separately all the species. So these are the actually number of our cases which we have given this advisory to different departments in the country who are undertaking this identification of the wildlife seized material, like Forest Department and Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. So these are the number of these are the specimens which we have been receiving it for identification. Our scientists, they identify those specimens and return back to them. Maybe any threatened species. And JDSI is also authorized by the Ministry of Home Affairs, notified by them to authenticate the identification. Sometimes even we are receiving this fake material like our rhino horn, and we have to identify if they are the fake specimens or a fake sample. Then those persons who are jailed or they are prosecuted, they are relieved for that particular purpose. Our scientists are also developing the protocol for the identification of different species or protected species, like on the basis of skulls, skins, and the basis of scale, like pangolin. And that protocol is also being developed by our scientists, and they are also published in different journals. Apart from animals, some of our scientists are also interested to have the forensic study of the human population genetics they are carrying out of the different our caste creed of the population in our country. That also has been published. Conservation genetics and genomics for different threatened species like red panda, then Arunachal macaque, then ibex, which is going to be a new species, then species discovery and new record to the faunal species from the India. So this is about the landscape genetics of the red panda in eastern Himalayas, and it's possible even without collecting those specimens of the red panda. That is being collected through this fishes, or you can say scats. They are collected from the field after having the permission from the Forest Department, and they are analyzed in the laboratory, and one can assess what are those species which are inhabiting those areas. So gut bacterial diversity in Arunachal macaque has also been studied, and this our phylogeny of ibex species found in the Himalayan region have been taken over, and I'm happy that our scientists are going to describe new species of the ibex, that is Himalayan ibex from Himalayan region, which is different from other species described from Himalaya, that is alpine and the Siberian ibex. We are putting entire database on state, district and taluka level as far as the GIS information is there, even into 1.25 to 1.25 degree our grid in our whole India map. One can find out what are the area where we have a more density or more population and more number of diversity in those areas. That one can see it after seeing it from 23 even up to 100. What are the area? This is about the spatial representation of number of species of the mammals across India. So one can tell how many species are there in that particular grid. This is for the birds. What are the maximum? So this is here. The number of species are more in northeastern region of the birds or mammals and birds. Here the more number of species of the Arctiofauna, reptilia and amphibia are more in the Western Ghat. Similarly for fishes also is more in the Western Ghat and the northeastern region. So now if you go group wise also, one can find out how many number of species are present in that particular grid. All those species were not at all available so far. Now this is about this our fauna diversity assessment of Ganga through eDNA. So once you, there is no need to collect all the samples from the Ganges, but you even need to collect the water sample from different areas of the Ganges. one can find out how many species of the vertebrates, invertebrate, eukaryotes, eukaryotes are present there to having the next generation sequencing. So distribution, species distribution modeling for some of our projects, particularly Himalayan region has been carried out, and one can assess what is going to the population maybe after 20 years, 30 years. So this is about the Himalayan langur. What is the present population of the Himalayan langur at present, and now what is going to happen after 2070. So that is going to be in few patches, and then the population, there will be population decline of the Himalayan langur from those areas. For the medical entomology, few scientists are already working in the Diptera sections for their vector control, particularly for the dengue mosquitoes. Anyone interested, they want to get identified the mosquito, will be happy to do it. JDSI has also been participating in our Antarctic expedition as well as the Arctic expedition, and several scientists have been going to there. Apart from these, JDSI also supported Forest Department for transplantation and restoration of the coral species in Gulf of Kutch, which were exterminated for last 1,000 years back. Then restoration of the reef using electricity, a sustainable technology to enhance and conserve Gulf of Kutch reef, that is called as a BioRock, and that project is also going on. Then there, if you are having the BioRock, many of those species and the coral reef restoration will be there in those areas. In different Lakshadweep Islands as well as in Andaman, this monitoring of the flood is going on. These are some of the bioecological studies. These are the 5-6 projects at the tune of more than 15 crores. They are going on in JDSI, and more than 100 researchers are working on these projects. That is conservation of threatened vertebrate fauna in the Himalayan region through long-term monitoring and capacity building, understanding the impact of forest fire on the faunal resources of northeastern states for conservation and management, assessing of moths as significant pollinators in the Himalayan ecosystem of northeastern region. Significant pollinators, moths. This was never taken up in our country, but our scientists are getting breakthrough. Many of the species have been, their proboscis have been identified along with the pollens of the plants, and biodiversity assessment through long-term monitoring plots in Indian Himalayan landscape. All those about 130 species which are threatened in Himalayan region. Some of those species are to be assessed. What is the population, whether it's declining or increasing. Lepidoptera is a potential indicator taxa for tracking climate change in Himalayan landscape. So this is medical entomology or JDSI scientists have been 1,550 books. Then these are the publications. Last year JDSI has brought out a total 569 publications, of which 154 are there in the SCI journals. So that itself is a great achievement for our scientists. But this is the fauna. And we are also having a lot of outreach activities. Many of our scientists, students, they visit to JDSI headquarters, as well as the regional centers. Around 200 researchers, academicians are from universities, colleges, they are working, affiliated with JDSI for the faunal studies. Around 5 lakh visitors, they visit to headquarters, Indian Museum, Digha Museum, as well as different regional centers. This is the training program which we have been carrying out in different regional centers and headquarters. This is about some of the universities, institutes from whom we have the collaboration, including Ravinsa University, Behrampur University from Odisha. They are having the collaboration with JDSI, and we are supporting to them. And if they are interested, they can carry out the JDSI. This is the training program organized under the Green Skill Development Program by JDSI. 200 taxonomists have been trained, of which around 100 they have already got job in different organizations like Forest. Now the challenge for all of us, including the university researcher, is that although around 102,000 species have been recorded from our country, but there are several lakh species which are still to be described. And it has already been estimated that there are around 8 million species in very conservative are to be discovered and known from the whole globe. So we need many more our researchers, students, as well as those professionals, NGOs, they can carry out. Even there is one scheme under Ministry of Environment and Forest, that is ICOPTEX, All India Coordinated Project on Taxonomy, under which ZSI along with the BSI and the Ministry, they are sanctioning the project for undertaking the taxonomic studies on the different group of animals. So with this I conclude my presentation, and I would like to have a question from any of the participants if they are interested. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Manip.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I will request all the participants who are there in this forum, particularly in the Google Meet, to one by one unmute their mic and they can ask question and interact with sir. And after that I will go for the Facebook Live. Nearly 200 plus students are there in Facebook Live, and their questions we have gathered here, and I will be asking on behalf of them to sir. First of all, the dignitaries who are present in the Google Meet, please.
I am Professor Satyam Narayana, retired from the Department of Wildlife by the JFC College, Tamil Nadu. Actually, hello, thank you. So actually, I am very happy that ZSI is collecting millions of the specimens throughout India. Along with the ZSI, there are a number of colleges and universities also collecting the sacrificing the specimens or preserving in the name of the morphological identification. So I would like to know, at least I am very happy that in the next generation we have the biotechnological tools going to be applied for the systematic. But I would like to know whether the ZSI has taken up the solo taxonomy. By calls, you can also identify some of the animals, whether they have tried in the ZSI.
Yes, Satyaji, our scientists are working. Dr. Anil Bhatt is there in Dehradun. He is working on the birds, acoustics. Then I think on our chiropterobites, and some of the scientists long back they joined ZSI for having this acoustic study on even the grasshoppers. But on the birds, it's already going on, and for other animals, we are going to procure acoustic or equipments, particularly for the marine mammals, that we are going to have it. I think some project will be started from our eastern coast, particularly this Andhra Pradesh coast, we are going to undertake it.
Thank you.
So we are working on the acoustic. Yes, please. Any other question?
Sir, good evening. I'm Dr. Abdul Hamid from Father College, Kerala. So as far as the protuberance are considered, see, the only one species report from West Bengal and 20 species from Kerala. So from other studies, due to the lack of studies or the absence of such species?
It's actually lack of survey and expertise both. Because our is difficult also, but now one of the scientists, he has come forward to work on this protuberance and abducens, and we are encouraging him. I hope only by next 3-4 years we will be having better understanding of this protuberance and abducens. Thank you, Dr. Nice question. And whoever is interested to contribute, I think we will welcome it.
We have a wildlife biology specialization, so some of the students are interested to carry out some works in some different fields.
Very, very interesting. Lot of gap areas are there, and I have shown in the map for this Aptericot 3 our classes. Brachdura, Pretura. Even Columnus also not yet completely studied.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr.
And with the permission of the chairman, I would like to have one more thing, clarification. So why not the ZSA can try for the digital capture of the specimen for identification, because instead of collecting number of animals again and again, in the throughout the country. Because I am a wildlife biologist where I am for the conservation. Now I am having a digital museum. I am advocating for the digital museum. In spite of just collecting all those things, we can have a photograph, we have a 2D, 3D, and with that I think scientists can identify instead of just killing the animals. And we talk lots about the biodiversity concept. What is your opinion about that, Director?
Thank you very much. It's a very, very important question for all of us who are dealing with wildlife studies. As far as vertebrates are concerned, nowadays, particularly the mammals and birds, we are not at all collecting. Maybe herpetofauna, when we know that they are the common species, we do not collect them, only we take the photograph. And fishes, up to some extent, we are collecting it. Because we do not have the understanding of all the states and all the riverine wetland system, how many species are there. We always get the query from our ministry. As far as the invertebrates are concerned, you know that more than 90% of the species belong to invertebrates, insects and other minute specimens. So if you have the photograph also from all those species, and they are not very, very good photograph, it is very, very difficult to even identify up to our genus level. So I cannot say that everyone should collect all the specimens, but some samples are to be collected for the reference purpose. I mentioned here, even ZSI may not be having all 1,02,000 species of animals in our country. And I do not even see that any other organization, even the world also, they will be having all those species. So we want to have at least some sample, maybe 5 specimens, 2 specimens for our reference purpose for the future studies. Otherwise, tomorrow somebody will say, without a specimen, how you have described a species? Without a specimen, what are you doing it? So for ZSI scientists, I think until they have the specimen, they should not describe the species. Moreover, this is very, very important to have a digital actually photograph of all the species, and that we are already doing it. We have already given the contact to some of the agencies. They are working on it for all 1,02,000, and all those species will be put there in our website. That we are going to complete it by maybe another 2 or 3 years, and then it will be accessible. I also suggest all those participants and this our amateur workers, until unless they have better understanding of the group, they should not collect it without knowing this. So they should first see whatever the literature is available, then only they should collect the sample and send it for identification.
Thank you very much for your conservation efforts.
Thank you.
Hello. This is Dr. Jagdishwar Seth from Barampur University, sir. Actually, we are really humbled that you have taken your time and given these nice deliberations. So a lot of my students are listening to you, sir. So on behalf of Barampur University and my students, I extend my heartfelt thanks to you for your generosity and your inclusivity. I must thank Dr. Anil Mahapatra for arranging such a nice deliberations. So my question is, like, we need community participations for biodiversity conservation. Without community participations, we cannot ensure biodiversity participation. And along with that, both E, that is economies and environment, should go hand in hand. So how we can ensure both economies and environment for the benefit of both diversity as well as community? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Kumarji. You may be knowing that once I have gone to your university and I gave one presentation also, maybe 4 or 5 years back. Dr.
Yes, sir.
Anil
Yes, sir.
was there. So thanks for participation. And the question which you have raised about the community participation, it's very nice actually attempt that you, I think from university, colleges are doing. For ZSI, we can only impart the training like taxonomists and who are interested to carry out the community level or outreach activities. Because so far we have very less number of human resource and researchers who could cover entire group of animals. So we are also already, I think, lack of the expertise. If you start devoting entire our time for community participation, it would be very difficult. Our main task would be, I think, lost. So we are always ready to help and support to any of the organizations who are coming from the NGOs or the colleges, university. And I think there will not be any problem for support from that side. But if you directly take up these activities, then at least we will be hampering our activities. Like Dr. Anil Mahapatra Malhotra is there. He is expert on eel fish. He has been describing more than 10, 12 species of eel fishes every year, new to the science. If he is involved in community participation from your area, I think will not be justifying. This is my viewpoint, and may be wrong. That is what I want to tell you. And thank you very much, Jackie Sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So, but we are ready to support any organization who are taking up this. This is very, very important to outreach to the people. Then only they will take part in the conservation.
Thank you, sir. I am taking a lot of benefit from ZSI Gopalpur. Thank you,
This
sir.
is participate.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yeah, sir. This is Dr. Sanjeev, especially from Uttarakhand. Nowadays, I'm in Maharashtra, and very thankful to you for a very nice presentation, sir. May I ask a very big question regarding to the wildlife conflict management? Because I am working with the tigers or the leopards. So, is there any plan of the ZSI in future perspective, the geospatial data analysis of conflict management of India? So, I want to be a support, or I want to be a part of this program in future. So, is there any plan for it?
You are most welcome to join ZSI for any of these activities. And I do not know whether you are aware that ZSI has already been working on the conflict human or wildlife in many of the areas. And recently we have got one project from Himachal Pradesh already working in the Himalayan region. And one project we have already completed in West Bengal with regards to this hyena, jackal, as well as this fox. So already this work is going on. This is on the basis of the geospatial information. Dr. Lalit Sharma, if you know him.
Yeah, I know, sir. I know.
FRI and WII. He is with us on a regular basis, is the senior scientist, and he has already started working on it. You contact him, and a lot of work is there to contribute from.
Yeah, I had sent my CV to you, sir, already. I had sent it, but unfortunately I couldn't get any notice.
Dr. Lalit Sharma, probably a lot of things would be there which could be done. And he might have advertised also some of the PDF RA post also. If you are interested, you can just.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Most welcome.
Please.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, madam. Welcome.
This is Dr. Madhavi from Osmania University, Hyderabad, Telangana State.
Namaskaram, madam. Namaskaram.
Namaskaram, sir. My students are working on exclusively on Lepidoptera and some of the milk-like insects, sir. Will my students any kind of funding from ZSI, sir?
As far as Lepidoptera is concerned, that includes moths and butterflies. Moths, we have more than 10,000 species from India. Butterflies, 1,640 species. There are more than 12 scientists working in Lepidoptera in ZSI. Moth, Microlepidoptera as well as the Macrolepidoptera. First of all, we want to know which group you are interested. If you want to know the general butterfly, general moth, and if you want to contribute it, many times these posts are advertised by ZSI. Whenever advertisement is there, you apply for that. In general also, if you are interested to work here, you may just contact our Dr. Navneet Singh is there in charge of Lepidoptera. He will certainly help you. If nothing happens, you just contact me personally. Lot of things are there to be completed from our side.
I visited in the month of September, sir, Asian Lepidopteran Conference. Presented paper also. Come with my students. And that's why I met you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. I think again ALCS 7 was to happen somewhere in the Malaysia, but because of the corona, it did not happen.
Yes,
and
sir.
the day before yesterday also, I was having this mock week. That also I have given the presentation. So a lot of things are happening. Mock week celebration is going on. I think you can also join some of the celebration.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Namaste.
You write to us if you have my email ID. Probably something like that.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining.
Sir, I would like to take some questions from Facebook Live. There are many students who had asked
Yes.
many questions. And
Yes.
one reporter, probably Mr. Ashish Senapati, had asked whether JDSI is doing any research on horseshoe crab to prepare medicine for COVID vaccine.
We are not doing any medicinal thing, but first we have to see the medicinal already lot of for right now taking, but if they suggest it, the I will stop at least. But currently, so far we are intended to do any study on the medicine.
Thank you, sir. One research called postdoctoral fellow from Korea, Kawa University, Women's University, Korea, Ajit Kumar Patra, he had asked, any project is going on to revive the critically endangered species by JDSI?
Dr. Pata, if you go through our website, I think you'll come to know already undertaking the Dikoli program. Actually, I think Forest Department all these protected areas. So they endangered and vulnerable. Just advisory body, and we can have the suggest them this our action plan, conservation action plan. Through that they can implement it. What is the department, wildlife department.
Yeah. Another question from Dr. Pinky Kaur from CFRI Kochi. Future and scopes of taxonomists in India, especially people who are working on pure taxonomy. She wants to know their future in India, sir.
Madam, there is always scope for taxonomists, but if you want my suggestion, I will say you that if you are having integrated approach, I think then it will have the better future, not only on the basis of the morphological characters, but it will combine together with the molecular studies, then phylogeny, then cryptospecies. Certainly it has got lot of scope, and then you can publish your paper also in better impact factors, STI journals. And if you are having 10-20 good papers, certainly you will be having better taste. And then simultaneously taxonomy will also have the better understanding and approach.
Sir, another question from Mr. Karan Thakur from MK Bhavnagar University. Is it possible to get hands-on training on taxonomy of insects from JDSI? What are the requirements?
Already we have been undertaking several training programs, identification techniques, collection, preservation techniques by JDSI. If they have the number of people, I think we can do it immediately. There is not a problem. It's just take a decision and then we carry it out. So let them have at least a few number of the people. So we will conduct it online also through webinar. So let them write to us.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Another question from Ravi Pratap Singh. He has written, what is the strategy of boosting taxonomic research in India, as lack of fund is a big issue?
I don't think there is a issue of finance or fund is concerned. Only thing, we have not been able to project ourselves. If you have the, I think, excellent workers on taxonomy, always there is a work for them.
And,
one of the scheme it is going to be launched by Government of India, that is Biodiversity Mission. Under that program, throughout India we may require several thousand people to carry out research on biodiversity, plants and animals. So only we are lacking the expertise. If I say I want expert on Protura or any of the maybe one of the isopods, so I may not be getting the experts to identify all the species of the isopods or the proturans. So there is lack of expertise also. So we have a lot of gap areas. Many of the states, ecosystems have not yet been completely surveyed. So there may be always a scope with the biodiversity and the study of the fauna and flora. Now, what would be our approach? That is the main thing. And next question mark. If you have the integrated approach, and we can carry out this molecular studies along with the classical taxonomy, that may be, I think, boon for the future.
He also asked with that ICOPTEX funding is mainly taken out by JDC and BSI. What about the other university people?
I think is not aware. Already 600 programs or projects we have received last year, which were screened by JDSI, BSI and Ministry of Environment and Forest. And more than 90% of the projects were submitted by the colleges, universities and other institutions. So hardly 5 to 10% were there from JDSI and BSI. So it's not correct that much of the chunk, even this year, he may not be aware that most of the projects have been given to outside JDSI and BSI. And BSI, JDSI not having 1% of those projects. So we are encouraging other workers in the universities and colleges. Then after that, JDSI and BSI given the preference.
Thank you, sir. Another Mr. S.K. Imran, he asked why the funnel diversity is lowest in Bihar and Chhattisgarh as shown in your slide.
What is he asking, Mr. Imran?
He is asking Bihar and Chhattisgarh why the funnel diversity is lowest as per your slide. Funnel diversity is lowest. Less funnel diversity.
Lowest, yes.
Yes.
There is a reason behind it. Because that is one first, this is a plain area. And latitude, you'll see the altitude. It's not altitude. And it's having adjoining states. So those species are common in Odisha, Uttar Pradesh, then Jharkhand, West Bengal. So a number of species will be always in such an area where we do not have the difference of the ecosystem. Like West Bengal, it is starting from the sea to the Himalayas. So the diversity will be more when there is a various type of ecosystem, landscape and climate. But wherever the similar climate will be there, I think there is always possibility of having less species.
One student, Hitanki Mahanti, is asking, what are the various opportunity one can have in marine biology and which is the best place to study marine biology?
For marine biology, there are several institutions. JDSI is no doubt covering almost all the fauna diversity of the marine areas in India, East Coast, West Coast, Andaman, Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep group of islands, Gulf of Kutch, Gulf of Mannar, all these areas we have been working. But even then, there is a lack of information of all the group of marine areas. Then they may take part in it. There are few institutions like Annamala universities. There are institutions in Chennai, and there are several universities also who are providing this our MSc PhD in marine biology. So otherwise, JDSI is always open to just support to any such type of studies. We welcome it, provided they are very much interested to contribute for the protected areas. That's a huge area. Still a lot of scope and potential is there to do the work.
Dev Vignesh, he had asked, what are the future recruitments upcoming in JDSI?
Although it should be confidential, but I would like to say already 90 posts of senior geological assistants advertised by the Ministry of Environment Forest under the Staff Selection Commission. So if they are MSc, having some research experience, they are welcome to apply it. Moreover, I will not mention total number of the posts, but various posts of scientists are going to be advertised by the ministry, which belong to the Geological Survey of India. Very soon, maybe within 1 or 2 months it will become.
Another question from Ms. Lopamudra Mahanti from FM University. She had asked about human-animal conflict, conservation of biodiversity with putting human community in trouble. Is this a good practice?
That I do not accept. Although being a wildlife worker, I am working in biodiversity. In fact, we are encroaching their area. That is why whenever we are having the conflict with them, we blame them that they are coming to our area. That's not the truth. So there must be some measures so that their area is protected and they are conserved in better, because their population is decreasing because of the anthropogenic factors. We have never heard that because of any animal, human being is affected. It's just physically we are seeing, we are expanding our area from villages to the cities, and from villages to cities there is not even a single space. I have experience from going from Delhi to Chandigarh. Not a single area, single space will be there where we can have this wildlife space, or for the species which could be, I think, inhabited by the any faunal species. So this is we which are creating the problem to them. But there are solutions also. There are solutions for this our human wildlife conflict if we can implement ground level. So there is no problem in that.
Sir, one last question from the students, Mr. S.K. Imran, who had asked, what are the methods that are taken up by government to provide local laymen proper knowledge and conservation of wildlife and forest?
You may be aware that we have actually this our channel starting from the ministry to the National Biodiversity Authority, then the State Biodiversity Authority, then district level authority. Even up to the panchayat level, this chain is there. So even up to the panchayat level, they have to maintain the People's Biodiversity Register. And there they have to document whatever the species have been reported and they are beneficial for the humankind and how many species are important for the conservation. So this has gone up to the lowest level. Only the thing now that there is a role of the citizens, how they can contribute for that. That is most important thing.
Sir, this is all about, we have almost come to an end of this session. On behalf of the Student Biological Regional Center of Zoological Survey of India and all the participants, I sincerely thank you for a nice, lucid, elaborative presentation on fauna of India and the work of ZSI and enlightening all the participants on these aspects. Sir, thank you very much on behalf of all of us. And I would like to thank all the dignitaries who are present over here and for their patient listening. Many dignitaries who are there, starting from professors of different universities and postdoctoral fellows, scientists. I thank all of them for their kind participation, and I also sincerely thank all the students who are participating in the Facebook live session. Because of space constraint, we can ask as much as 100 participants in Google Meet. So I thank all of them for their patience, and sir, thank you very much for your kind presence and enlightening us on these aspects. And we are humbled and learned a lot from this. I hope all the students will be going through various lectures in near future by this forum, and students will be allowed for this forum to enter Google Meet and interact directly from the next session onwards. Sir, thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rohit. I have only 2 points to just mention here for the interest of the students and the researchers. First point that there are many, I think, researchers who may be carrying out a lot of research activities on the fauna of different people. If they have the interest and they want to continue, and they have published many good papers in the SCI journal, they can send their database to ZSI. And we are actually compiling the database for all the workers who are having the discipline taxonomy, maybe on even the integrated taxonomy. And apart from that, whole year we have been advertising the post of JRF, SRF, Research Associate, PDF, so they can also apply for that. Apart from that, as you have mentioned, this is going to be a series of program by ZSI scientists. There are actually presentation for every group of the genus, every group of the subfamily, family. So it's unlimited. If they want to have interest, I think they can write to you or to the headquarters, Technical, that what are the interests they are having. then we can have a special presentation on all those groups.
Yes, sir.
So it's the limit of the lectures by JDSI can. Sorry. Thank you very much, Dr. Rani.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very
Okay.
much, sir.
Good.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.